Okay, let's get political. Kenneth Bruce Gorelick. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that's his name, but Kenny G sounds a lot better for the fans. But here's my issue. When it comes to Kenny G, I really don't like the way people put him down. Alright, and you know, I think Kenny G is a great player. Great player. I grew up listening to him when I was a little kid. You know, smooth jazz was like the frontier of jazz in the early 90s, late 90s, you know, with the saxophone playing, and then in early 2000s, you know, you could hear some of his jazz played in movies. Not much anymore, but Kenny G is a pretty good player. You know, he says in his interviews that he practices 2 to 3 hours a day, which I believe. But when it comes to his attitude towards saxophone players, that really throws me off. In an interview in a local radio show in my hometown, he had said things along the lines of, smooth jazz, I love it, but the genre is bringing forth too many saxophone players. Wait, what? How are you so-called the king of smooth jazz, or the best smooth jazz saxophone player around, and you aren't allowing other people to come into the genre? What? And then he goes on to say things like, well, there's too many people in this genre. Well, I can't distinguish who's playing or who's not playing. Well, isn't that the whole point of getting to know more saxophone players? You know, that's what you want to do as a musician, as a growing musician, as you always state in your interviews, that you never know it all. You never the master. You're always practicing. Well, if you're always practicing, you're always listening as well. Musicians always listen. Part of listening is to listen to different saxophone players. Duh. So, really, Kenny G, you really just kind of disappointed me on a personal level, because, you know, even though people in the, you know, jazz realm of today, you know, or in schools that I go to, people would diss you, and, you know, sometimes I stand up for you, but now I kind of don't stand up for you now. You know, when, you know, visitors or company come by my house and, you know, they hear me practicing or whatever, they'll be like, oh, he's Kenny G, he's the great, you know, or he'll, you know, they'll put me at a pedestal and they'll be like, oh, you playing like Kenny G. Well, you know, I usually think, oh, well, they think I'm a good saxophone player. Well, you know, I don't think that now. You know, I kind of think of Kenny G as more or less a sellout. I mean, I gotta give it to you guys straight. He's a sellout. I mean, he sells his products. Yes, he sells his products well. He's a good saxophone player, but when you promote jazz, the legends, the people themselves, the actual musicians, they really do want to hear traditional jazz. Stuff out the Fate book, a standard of some sort. Please, every once in a while, put a standard on your album. You know, and he probably does put one or two when he started, you know, started to put, you know, some jazz standards on his album. But now it's more fantasy type, his own compositions, you know, just like other smooth jazz artists, you know, covering old R&B and soul type songs. But Kenny G really doesn't put himself out playing, you know, any kind of bebop, any kind of traditional jazz legend music. He never does that. I probably only see him play blue bossa once in a live take on his tenor saxophone. Surprisingly, because it said that he plays the soprano saxophone, the flute, the tenor, the alto. And I've only seen him play the alto maybe once, you know, and I've only seen him play the tenor only once. I've seen him play the soprano more times than I can think of. But Kenny G, I really have to rethink the way I used to think about Kenny G, because, you know, Kenny G is just not Kenny G anymore to me. You know, he's just more or less a saxophone player who goes after the publicity. I mean, I know he gets a lot of publicity and he can't control that. He's famous, you know, everybody loves him, you know, Kenny G, you know, but a lot of this stuff, you know, when it comes to promoting people, when it comes to you doing interviews, Kenny G, why can't you stop and think about the people who want to be in your shoes, the people who want to pick up a saxophone and want to play smooth jazz. Think about those people, and maybe they want to be famous one day. You know, you never know who is following in your footsteps and who is trying to be like you. So don't demean their efforts, or, you know, stomp on their dreams by saying, oh, well, there's getting to be too many people in this genre of smooth jazz, you know. And then he has his own line of saxophones. Apparently, these are the end-all, be-all to saxophones to Kenny G. You know, these are the world's greatest saxophones. Kenny G, come on, I know you want to promote your saxophone, but don't say they're the world's best saxophone. You can say they're a great saxophone, you can say they're awesome saxophones, but saying they're the world's best saxophone, that sounds kind of conceited to me. If you look under my favorites in the Project Sax channel, you'll see various Kenny G interviews and various Kenny G clips that he did on YouTube that I have favorited, because those are the videos that I want you guys to go back into and look. Because Kenny G, you know, it just, I don't even really listen to his albums anymore. Kenny G, I'm losing faith in you, man, and it's getting kind of sad, because when I first played the saxophone, maybe around 7th or 8th grade, I started listening to one of his albums, and I played a solo, and it made me feel empowered. You know, played a solo of his, and it made me feel empowered. Like, I was, oh, Kenny G can play it, I can play it too. Now, you know, and now it's just like, Kenny G, who is he? So, yeah. Let me know what you think about Kenny G now that you've heard this information. You know, I know Kenny G is one of the most popular saxophone players out there, and, you know, I have respect for him. I just can't like him on that personal level that Kenny G is like a big brother saxophone player type level. Like, if somebody said you have a chance to go get some lessons from Kenny G, I would be like, yeah. So tell me what you think about Kenny Gorelick. You know, am I wrong for thinking this? Am I stupid? I mean, because I'm a saxophone player just like anybody else, you know, that plays the saxophone, you know, and I hear good players, I hear bad players, you know, I hear players that are famous, you know, and I hear players that are not famous. You know, I've heard a wide spectrum of saxophone players. I know Kenny G is really, really good, but the way that the saxophone player thinks in reference to his fans and his followers, is that more important than, you know, his actual music? What is Kenny G really trying to do? You know, I know that he supports the schools, he supports the arts and stuff like that, and that's good. But really, Kenny G, is he all we make him up to be? Comment in the boxes below. Let me know how you feel. And you know what? We can discuss this, man. We can you know, we can talk about it till the cows come home. But I heard from Kenny G in that interview that he doesn't like the smooth jazz artists that are coming up today. He think they're overcrowding his, you know, view of other saxophone players, you know, saying things like that, like he can't distinguish who's playing now because there's so many different artists. Shouldn't it be a good thing that there are many people who want to be just like you? This is Devin. I'm really ending this video off on a sour note, but yeah, just tell me what you think. You know, subscribe, comment in the boxes below. Let me know, is Kenny G, you know, the big bad wolf of saxophone players like I make him out to be in this video? I mean, he's still a good saxophone player. Don't forget that. He's a wonderful saxophone player. But is it worth me going through and hearing all this criticism about him? Is it worth me putting him at this pedestal of an excellent player like everybody else does if he treats, you know, his fans, his fellow saxophone players that want to be a smooth jazz artist like crap, you know. What should I think? Tell me what you think. I really want to know what you think. I can get some questions going. I can get some more comments going. I can, you know, answer some questions.